In this video, we're going to learn how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Suppose we have the equation 2y squared plus 10y equals negative 11. As part of the setup for completing the square, we need to make sure that all of our constant terms are located on the right side of the equation. We also need to make sure that our lead coefficient is 1. In this case, our constant term is already located on the right side of the equation, our negative 11, but our lead coefficient is 2. So I'm going to divide 2 through every term in order to get a lead coefficient of 1. Now I have y squared plus 5y equals negative 11 divided by 2. Now when we complete the square, essentially what we're doing is completing a perfect square trinomial on the left. We do this by taking our coefficient of our first degree variable term. So we have 5y, we take that coefficient, 5, divide it by 2, and square it. 5 divided by 2 squared can be written as 25 over 4, and so that is going to be added to both sides of the equation. Now, one of the nice things about completing the square is once we have our trinomial on the left, because it's a perfect square trinomial, it's relatively easy to factor. In perfect square trinomials, you can take the square root of your first term, then we use this sign, and the square root of our last term. So in other words, to factor that trinomial, the square root of y squared, which is y, plus the square root of 25 over 4, which is 5 halves, and we square the whole expression, equals negative 11 halves plus 25 over 4. Now in order to add those fractions, they need to have the same denominator. I see that my lowest common denominator is 4, so I know that I have to multiply negative 11 over 2 by 2 over 2. And then add that to 25 over 4. This gives me negative 22 over 4 plus 25 over 4, and that turns out to be positive 3/4. My next step is to take the square root of both sides of the equation using the square root property. When I do that, I have plus or minus on the right, so now my equation should read y plus 5 halves, because the square root of a square is a first power term, equals plus or minus 3 over, or square root of 3 rather, square root of 3 over 2. The 2 is removed from the radical at this point because 4 is a perfect square, and the square root of 4 equals 2. Now all that's left for me to do is to subtract 5 halves from both sides of the equation. So I'm left with y equals negative 5 halves plus or minus square root of 3 halves. And because we have a denominator of 2 in both terms, this can be rewritten as negative 5 plus or minus square root of 3 divided by 2. And that's our final answer. I hope you found this video helpful, and we'll see you next time.